a bit of my organizing family history is also 350.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so I got started in climate organizing like early in college. Greenpeace used to have this program called the Greenpeace semester that was like boot camp for like college students on like learning how to be a paid activist. It was incredible. And then I got really overwhelmed. I was in Copenhagen with Bill McKibben.
Oh my God.
I was like shared a computer charger with him. It was very exciting. It was a celebrity moment.
Celeb, yeah.
I was like, Bill, do you need a charger? So I helped save the climate with that moment. But I finished school and was just feeling overwhelmed because Copenhagen was a total flop. I was like, I need to like do something that's gonna feel like immediate change right now. So I got into teaching. So I taught 6th graders for a few years, but of course, I was teaching on the Navajo Nation. And from my classroom, I could see 2 coal plants and a coal mine.
Oh, wow. What
Yes,
state?
New Mexico. And I learned that the only local kind of statewide group working to close any of those coal plants was 350. And I got connected to them when I moved to Albuquerque. I took a job and worked, I was like paid staff for 350 New Mexico for like
I
6
don't even know
months.
this about you.
Yeah, I did that before I moved to Alaska to stop climate, propose climate coal mines. So yeah, funny little
I
shared
did never
history.
knew that about you.
Yeah. Am I running these first
I
couple?
can actually, I'm worried I'm standing in your guys'
I feel like we could be wherever.
That's us.
Okay, that's us. I can share, elaborate on my story a little bit too, that since Monica brought it up. When I moved to New York City, I was really excited to work in, at some of the biggest like ad agencies in the world, right? Because this is the advertising capital of the world. And I got a job at Edelman, and Edelman is the largest PR and communications firm in the world. The work that they have an entire sustainability department at Edelman. They have nonprofits like the American Red Cross that they work with.
Truth Barometer?
The
No,
Trust Barometer,
Trust
yes, they
Barometer,
put out
yes.
this Trust Barometer, which is an incredible report on just trust in society and trust in institutions. They worked with the Human Rights Campaign, or maybe still do. So I was drawn to all of the good work that the organization was doing, and thought, hey, that's going to be something that's going to be great to be a part of. And then when I got there, sometimes we get jobs and the job is a little bit different than you thought it was going to be. But I got there, and while I loved the people and I loved the creativity and I loved actually my coworkers and everything we were working on, I found out what Monica said, that actually Edelman had and might still have the largest number of fossil fuel contracts of like any single PR or ad agency. So they were working and still work with Shell and Chevron. At one point they were working with the American Petroleum Institute, ExxonMobil, and I don't want to, we're going to get into what that actually means when I say work on those things, but working with those companies in ways that's totally detrimental to our movement and what we're trying to accomplish. So I took the initiative to try to get them to stop that by gathering a group of employees who were totally against it. A group of motivated employees who were like, well, we can't do the one thing. We can't, work on
Human rights campaign.
we can't like help the Human Rights Campaign and like help the American Red Cross and like promote good health and then work with Shell and Chevron to like continue endless extraction of fossil fuels forever. So we formed a little group. It wasn't actually little. At one point there was like 100 of us or something inside the organization. Met with the CEO, Richard Edelman himself on multiple occasions, sent him a signed letter by hundreds of employees, really rallied internally to get them to stop doing that. We didn't succeed entirely. We did, in partnership with Clean Creatives, get them to drop ExxonMobil as a client at one point, which was really exciting because that's at least one, that was the biggest one. although we weren't able to get them to go clean entirely. I am not there anymore. I work at a different ad agency, but I'm still very, very, very involved in the movement with Laura and team. So
Yeah.
that's like the connection to all of this. But we'll talk. We want to talk a little bit about what these ad agencies are doing and why this is so important.
And like what role you can all play, right? It's like hearing like healthcare agency, like interest, like the government involvement, like all of these things are tied together.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this is some slides of a training that we ran like a month ago
A
now.
month ago, yeah.
Around kind of like the increased amount of backpedaling we are seeing a lot of brands and companies doing, especially in the face of the Trump administration. We're seeing like Target step back on their diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. And we're seeing more and more agencies that on paper seem really good, quietly start erasing their climate commitments too. So with the people that we have on our team, we put together this training to kind of equip everyone of not just noticing when these things are happening, but feeling a little bit braver in speaking up, or even simply like asking questions around it. Just the recognizing the like, that little like ick or discomfort, and bringing word to it can often just like help someone else in the room be like, oh, that didn't land right for me too, and start that conversation, which is often all it takes for us to then get to those hundreds of individuals taking action. So a little bit about the campaign and what we're trying to do here. So I mentioned I worked for a number of years to stop some coal mines, worked on clean energy work. What's really unique to Clean Creatives and what draws me to it is that it is upstream. When you think about like a disaster relief organization, like they're working on climate change too, right? If there's Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, like being on the ground, boots on the ground, taking care of people is a little bit more further downstream. What draws me to Clean Creatives is it thinks much more about kind of what's enabling and supporting the fossil fuel industry to keep doing what they're doing and keep business as usual. So the main part, like what allows them to do that is the money that they put into lobbying, the money that we saw, DoorDash, billionaires pour into the recent mayoral campaign is just like one example of that. And that's often PR companies putting in that money. It's also when we see a lot of ads that are like, Shell's clean energy campaign, or when we hear last year an agency that I was really hoping was gonna go and sign the pledge won the Shell campaign. But what we heard from them internally was, oh, we're only working on their EV campaign. There is no EV campaign. Like the amount of money, yes, the amount of money that they're spending to tell people that they're doing electric vehicles is actually more money than they're actually investing in the electric vehicles themselves. They're really good at telling this story and kind of this distraction tactic. It would be like if you worked at McDonald's, if you were like representing McDonald's as an advertising company, you're like, oh, I'm not selling fast food to children. I'm only selling the Happy Meal toys. That's how they make money, right? Like that's the distraction tactic. And we know all big companies have these little feel good projects that are meant to like distract you and say like, hey, look over here. When I was in Alaska working to stop proposed coal mines, the one coal company in Alaska, Usaveli, I'll never forget this woman's name, Lorelei, was expert at this. They are looking to like reopen this coal mine, and down the street and downwind from where the like tilling pond would be and like all the leftover junk was a kid's playground, of course. And they're like, it's fine, we're gonna invest money to make it a really nice playground. So they poured like $100,000 to make like the nicest playground. Yes, like the nicest playground in like all of Alaska. Like that's the last thing we want is like more kids in the wind path of this coal mine. So what Clean Creatives is aiming to do is to like cut those ties. If we can take those pillars of support away from fossil fuel companies and kind of echo what's happened with tobacco in a lot of ways. Like, tobacco companies were allowed to do whatever they wanted until about the 1960s, 1970s. Then we saw a ban on advertising for tobacco products on billboards and in magazines, which was like mostly where the advertising was happening at the time. After that decision was made, and that kind of ability to influence public opinion and therefore government opinion was taken away, we saw the use of and actual harm from tobacco products go down and like never to get better again. And what we saw was like studies and actual like investment into exploring the health causes and the implications of these products. If we could do that with tobacco in the 70s, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that with fossil fuels today. And good news is we're not alone. There are huge efforts happening in the UK and the EU to actually institute those like government level bans. There are a number of cities and even some like kind of smaller countries and like communities that have gotten those bans passed. But what we're doing at Clean Creatives is much more that employee-led voice and effort. So working with the like Drews at Edelman and the folks who are inside. Because what we're realizing, and another thing that makes me really excited about it, being an organizer on this campaign, is these are the folks closest to the problem and like with the actual power to do something about it. None of the creatives that like work at Edelman or want to see their talent, their skills, their wisdom used to like worsen the climate crisis. Like often y'all are like artists, progressives, like came into this like with design and like wanting to like do cool things and like change hearts and minds in a positive way, and we're like drawn by these great clients. It's not how they want their work to be done. And for like so many years, I felt like probably a lot of you in this room where I'm like, oh, I don't want to see that coal plant happen, but like, who am I to do anything about it? And I can like go through the process and I can speak at the public commissioner's office and I can do a comment. But with working with these creatives directly, they can actually stop doing the work. They can get these contracts ended. They're like the ones who are like adding and amplifying the voice of these fossil fuel companies. So it's really neat to be working directly with the folks who have the power to do or not do this work. And it's been incredibly effective. So we launched about 4 years ago. Drew's been on this campaign longer than I've been. And it's been incredible. We're at over 1,400 agencies, and not just small ones. So there's some large agencies with like hundreds of employees. The largest agency in Ireland has signed the pledge. Some agencies that are like companies underneath some big bad holding companies that still have the fossil fuel clients, they've signed, so it shows that we're like making progress internally. We're also working with media companies so that they'll commit to stop selling this ad space. So Vox Media, they're like, oh, we would never sell ad space to a shell. We won't run ExxonMobil ads the way that New York Times does on their podcast. We're like, great, tell the world that. That would be really helpful. We also are working to like push kind of the certification process forward too. So if you're familiar with like the concept of like B Corps, great idea, love them. They need to have much clearer standard. There's no way you should be able to be an agency that works with Shell and represents them and hold B Corp status. That's absurd.
What's B Corp?
B Corp, it like means it's a certification that some companies will go through that says that we're doing better for our clients, a better brand, better for the planet, the world. And there's like a list of, you have to like pay a lot of money. It takes like over a year to like put together the paperwork to like say certify us. Yeah,
So
it's like a lead certification, about like for how a company runs.
Okay.
So we worked with some of our agencies that are signed the pledge, so they would never work with a fossil fuel company, and also pay money for their B Corp status to push back and say, this status means nothing to us if an agency is allowed to have a fossil fuel client. So we got B Corp status taken away from Havas for their ties to Shell. And the coverage has been huge. This is Richard Edelman, this is Drew's old boss. We just followed him around at the biggest kind of week of ad industry kind of moment. It's called Cannes Lions. It's Cannes Film Festival, same spot, different week. And just told people, this man works with fossil fuel clients. This agency is happy to greenwash fossil fuels. And you can't look up Richard Edelman on the internet anymore and have this photo not show up.
Yeah.
And while we might not ever get Richard to do the right thing, he's handing his company over to one of his kids someday. And what a great opportunity we're giving them to step into something new and do this differently. So what we work to do is kind of support the strategists, the creatives, the copywriters to ask these questions, begin these conversations, and to start to push back a little on who they're working for. And at a lot of these companies, there is internal policy of being able to say for my religious values, I won't work for gambling client, or I won't work for tobacco. My family has a history of health, issues, whatever. There's generally always written rules that they can do that. It's not clear everywhere if they can do that for fossil fuel clients yet. So that's another way that we're having these conversations there, is to make these policies a bit clearer, so that folks can more safely say, I don't want to work on these clients, and we can make it harder for them to do so. Right, and this is why, right? Every misleading story you've ever heard about climate change begins with an agency telling the story. So folks have heard the term carbon footprint before. We might have even made different decisions in our lives based on this carbon footprint idea. Sorry, that was designed by, it was Publicis, Ogilvy for BP. So BP was like, oh, don't look at us and what we're doing, selling huge amounts of gasoline and creating the climate crisis. Let's have everyone think about their own individual actions instead. Hugely, wildly successful campaign. Another one is just the term natural gas. There's nothing natural about natural gas. We call that nothing for years. What an excellent rebrand. And so that's what we're working to do, is to put in some of these questions, take away some of the power that these brands have by taking away their voice and this power of amplification. And this is kind of what I was sharing earlier, where there is no electric vehicle. That's not happening. We see over and over again that these claims from these big oil companies that, oh, we have a net zero goal, oh, we're investing in these new clean energy technologies. They're not. It's less than 1% of their actual spending is going towards these things. But when you see the ads, it's over 70% of the ads that they run talk about that tiny little investment that they do, which really they're only investing in so that they can talk about it. And this is, goes on for years. From ExxonMobil has known about climate change, it was 1970s.
Yeah.
It's forever. And these companies aren't changing. So the other piece of this is that there's not a way that you can sustainably or ethically continue to work and represent these fossil fuel clients. So that's another question we get from some of these agencies sometimes, is oh, but can't we help them change? I'm working with them on the good things. We're going to change them from the inside. You can't help them change if they're not changing themselves. And what we're seeing over and over again is that these fossil fuel companies aren't even, they're not making these investments, they're making even less investments. They're taking away these commitments. So this transition isn't happening. So it makes no sense for us to continue to tell the world that they are doing these things when they're not, right? This shift back to oil and gas. This is an article from earlier this year. They're abandoning all of their renewable energy projects. This kind of like, they tell the shareholders the real thing, but now they're taking off this like green filter and false commitments, and they're being clear, they're not faking it anymore. So now is kind of the time for us to turn up the heat even more. And the way we've been doing it is not just working with employees internally at these companies, which is great, continuing to do that stuff. But we're starting to work with the other clients too. So as Drew was saying about his story with like American Heart Association, Human Rights Campaign, what a beautiful carrot these nonprofits, these government agencies, these maybe positive brands, the Patagonias, the Seventh Generation, the Lush Cosmetics, those companies that are like, I want my audience to see me as doing good in the world. Well, if you're doing something like selling a product and wanting to be seen as clean and green, maybe you sell water bottles and want to be seen as the forefront of sustainability. You shouldn't be spending your advertising dollars in the same building that down the hall is causing the problems that your product is looking to address. So just a couple of weeks ago, we released a huge report getting a bunch of health agencies, nonprofits, Doctors Without Borders, for examples, representing a couple million members and like doctors and associations to say, we're not gonna let our nonprofit companies, our NGOs, work with any agency that continues to represent fossil fuel clients. And that's huge, because we're taking away kind of those agencies' own little like badges of, yeah, we're doing bad things over here, but forgive us, look over here at the good work we're doing with the American Lung Association. Because those don't cross each other out. If you're helping a company like Saudi Aramco continue operations for like 30 more seconds, you've erased any positive change you've made working with the good guys. And yeah, so another thing that we really work on is kind of supporting folks within these agencies to ask those questions too. Whether it's kind of putting some sand in the gears when it comes to new clients pitching, or even considering kind of questions around, do I want to stay at this company anymore? Asking questions in the interview process around, who will I be working with? Are you committed to doing this work? And lifting up and amplifying the stories of the good agencies that have signed the pledge and can also make this case that you can run a PR and advertising agency, not work with these clients, and be financially strong, have happy and healthy workers, and like be good to go for years to come. Is there anything you'd add in on that?
No, that's what Clean Creatives is, and that's what Laura and team and I have been working on. I think, the next part of this is really like to give you a view into the specific training that we shared with employees of ad agencies and their networks. And like Laura said, what we were really trying to do was two things, like help these employees spot this BS, as we call it, like, the talking points, the like cute things that the CEOs say and the executives say, and then how to call it out. And that's hard, right? Like that's really hard to stand either within the walls of your employer or in a meeting or in a town hall or like one of these settings, even in like a civic meeting that we've all been to, like that's hard to stand up and be the person who's like, saying you're wrong or I'm gonna call you out. So this was really an effort to help people kind of grow that skill set. So we kind of recreated, Laura was like, well, Drew, you and others at Edelman have like actually done this like many times. Like, how did you do that? And what did it feel like? And what barriers did you have to overcome? So we kind of took people through like a scenario like that one and said, okay, let's say you're at your workplace and the CEO is hosting, well, this actually happened. I guess this is not hypothetical. Real. This is like a real situation.
Yeah, so last year, how I mentioned Shell moved to a new ad agency called Havas. It was a huge shock to everyone that worked at Havas. People were like, oh, Havas, this is like the like sexy, positive, like this is the cool kids agency. So happy to be here. And then behind their backs, the CEO pitched, built this tiny team to run this. And the staff actually learned about the Shell contract through the media. Extinction Rebellion did an event in front of their offices, and they were like, wait, what, is this true? And so to try to fix that, that's like, to try and like hurry and have a response, the CEO, the global CEO, his name's Yannick, was like, okay, everyone, so sorry about these crazy activists making noise up front. Talk to me directly. We're gonna have a town hall. And the people inside were like, you know, understandably shocked. They're like, why didn't we know about this? Why am I learning about this about protesters? Also, for a lot of them in the UK, the protest was scary. The police were called, there was a lockdown happened, there was no information shared. It could have been like a shooter in the space, they had no information. And so this town hall was meant to be this space to like update everyone, hear from the CEO directly, and they had it in the place where they normally have these town halls. So like, kind of imagine one of those like gala situations with like the big stairway and then like the big open space. You've seen Grey's Anatomy, it's like where they do that like big kind of conversation space and like Richard stands on the stairs. So they're gonna do this town hall there where all the staff was like invited to sit and stand, and then he was gonna be on this raised platform. What they didn't know was like, would questions be taken live? Do you have to submit the questions in advance? What's going on there? So this was the scenario that we recapped for everyone here. Was like, if you knew a town hall was happening in 2 days, how would you respond to this moment?
And I think some of the things we took them through when we kind of shared this was, you know, as you're speaking up, and maybe you're not comfortable speaking up, like maybe you don't want to, there's many ways to do this. You can stand up and you can voice your concerns. You can, you know, if it's Zoom like we were talking about earlier, or like something you're in a chat, you can like post your comments in the chat. But the things to think about are like, what do you want from your target? Like, what are you trying to accomplish by this question or this statement or this conflict, you know, this point of conflict? What do you want your secondary target to take away from this too? So we were sharing with individuals, you know, maybe your question appears to be directed at the CEO and the CEO is the target, but actually the room is the target. You know, your coworkers might be, your managers might be the target. Or you
We
might
might
be trying
never
to reach
get Yannick
others.
to say no, but we could get everyone in the room. If we get everyone in the room to say no, Yannick isn't gonna do the work for Shell himself, you know?
Right,
He's not making the ads, he relies on all the workers to get the work done.
Right.
Can you give an example of what somebody might have put in a chat?
Oh, I'm gonna guess.
Okay.
You're
Yeah.
great transition. That's
Okay.
like the very
Okay.
next slide, I think. So what's a good question to ask, and how would you ask it? That's exactly what
Okay,
we'll
great.
share now. And then how would you prepare for like the question back or the response? Like what's gonna happen next? So this is what we called calling out the BMs. So we were like giving exactly what you just said, Haley, was if you were to pose a question, what would that be? And we gave 3 examples.
Or 3 elements to make sure that the question included.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So like 3 sort of ways to frame your question and then an example for each. So the first thing we said was draw a clear line between what scientists say we must do and what agencies are actually doing, right? So like put those side by side. So a way you can do that easily in any of these major agencies is say, okay, scientists say at the IPCC that PR and ad campaigns on behalf of the fossil fuel industry are derailing climate solutions. Like they actually said that in the 6th assessment. They called out PR and ad agencies. Havas leaders say your work with Shell is, quote, driving positive change. So who's right? And the who's right is sort of when the crickets enter the room. you know, because there's really, are you gonna say Yannick and the CEO of an ad agency that you know better than the IPCC scientists? Like, are you gonna make that claim? So that's example number one, or like pillar number one. The second thing we suggested was call greenwashing when you see it and question the feel-good climate work. Laura talked about that feel-good climate work from agency websites, trades, and online. So that's like look, we're like greening the planet and we're planting trees and we're working on EV and like all that stuff. So, you know, potentially you could say, Ogilvy Consulting says greenwashing makes the sustainability conversation increasingly negative. This is stuff you can find like right on these agencies' websites too. You know, they have all these like downloadable PDFs and like information, and they say on Ogilvy's website that they believe that greenwashing is making the sustainability conversation negative. As if someone else is doing the greenwashing. But Ogilvy, you are the ones who have created greenwashing ads for BP for years. So does that make you part of the problem? It's actually a little bit of self-reflection required there. And then the last pillar and example we gave to the team was bring to light the dirty work and use real life examples. Thanks to Laura and team and everyone at Clean Creatives, like there is so much coverage now of the actual work that these companies are doing. So we know that Ogilvy is doing this for BP, and we know that Edelman is doing this for Shell, and it's easily like right there if you look up, just like Google those names. So it's pretty simple to say, like put the two together and say, okay, Richard Edelman, or okay, executive team at Edelman, how does your work with Charles Koch, an avid climate denier and one of the country's strongest voices in opposition to climate regulations, how does your work with that guy align with your climate commitments? Seems like those two things aren't going together. So we shared those three pillars and those examples just as a way to like, you know, get people to think about what questions they could ask or how they could push a little bit. And like we were saying, that might be in the room, that might be in a chat, that could be in many different places. I'm gonna go through a little bit quickly, but we also gave the team some tips on rhetoric and performance, which is really things like how to calm your nerves, right? Or how to use eye contact, or how to drive your points in a clear and concise way. Like, I think this was, and one of our teammates who actually is a performer, an actor, presented,
You might know him from Climate Defiance. He regularly gets arrested with Extinction Rebellion.
Which one?
Nate Smith.
You know him on it?
Yeah.
He's like a movie star. Oh, I've seen it.
I know.
He's interrupted the Broadway show I attended, yeah.
I know.
Sixth Fest actually uses space here.
Oh,
to be heard,
wonderful.
and they just had a performance Monday and Tuesday night. They had a performance, so they do great work.
Yes.
So this was a small but important part of, you know, the presentation, and I think for anyone who feels a little anxious to say, like, here are the tips that you can use to do that. So we closed that section really just by saying, you know, it's easy, when we say do your research, it takes literally 5 minutes. So like Google Edelman and fossil fuels, or Ogilvy and fossil fuels, it comes up. So many stories come up. So the research part is not like heavy research, it's pretty simple to do. Find your people, which really means like, I sat alone at Edelman thinking out of 8,000 employees, I was the only one who cared about this. That's what it feels like that at first. I don't know why, until you find others, either through those meetings when you're asking questions, or just talking amongst people, like this seems off, or this seems like we shouldn't be doing this. And once you find 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, then you've got a movement. And then prepare for impact, which was really just talking about what do you do next. So you've asked your question, you found your people, like what happens after that. I I think those are the most important parts. We had an open forum after that where people talked about if they've ever done this before, if they've ever spoken up at their company before, if they plan to do it, like just a really productive conversation, and then we signed off. It was a really productive training, and people were fired up. And I would love to open it up to questions in the room here too.
And who'd you present it to? Like a,
Yeah, so we have a list now of like over 6,000 people who are like in advertising and PR agencies that have maybe individually said, yeah, I won't work for fossil fuel companies, but they might still be at an agency that does. So providing them, so we send an email out to all of them, and then we're also, this like, shared it on our like social media handles. So there were a number of folks I think that work at other brands and companies that are like, oh, bad stuff's happening at my company too. How do I call this out? So a number of people just kind of from the public signed up and joined as well.
And I guess I will say too, like, yes, this is about ad agencies and PR, and this is the problem that we choose to solve, but these are skills I think that are important in any sort of town hall setting or meeting where, you know, it doesn't have to be an ad agency. Like, there are banks where this should be happening as they're talking, you know, as it relates to like fossil fuel funding. This should probably be happening at law firms where they're defending fossil fuels. Like, this training and these points are applicable in so many forums.
We actually ran this originally right before New York City Climate Week last year. We were like, oh, get ready for some corporate sponsored BS that we might need to ask some questions about. So any of those kind of big moments, or like who's coming to town, speaking at such and such, where we might want to equip some people in the audience to ask some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, this just reminds me of a conversation I saw. I got a YouTube video of the CEOs of the 5 biggest oil companies in the world testified to Congress all day.
Right.
So it was like 6 hours long, so I played it while I was working all day. And like, everybody in the squad asked questions, but they weren't very well informed and they were just rude. And like Ilhan Omar, she just told them all to resign. But Ro Khanna, you know him from Silicon Valley, he was really good. He was not rude. He was really polite, even almost downright friendly. But they had all sworn that they were not directly funding climate skepticism. And he said, you know, okay, you've all sworn that you're not funding climate skepticism, but you all fund the American Petroleum Institute, which does fund climate skepticism. Will you promise to tell the API to stop funding climate skepticism?
Yeah.
Complete silence.
Yeah.
None of them would promise that.
Yeah, I remember that moment actually. Or sometimes in a different setting, the answer would be, well, like, we don't decide what they do or something. And it's like, well, you fund them. You're paying for them. Yeah. So,
follow the money.
yeah.
So, question.
Let's see, have you had, are there any examples of success, like, of actually changing hearts and minds of the CEOs, you know, as opposed to, it's like, stay there activism versus exit stage left?
Yes. So a couple, off the bat, I'm in a conversation right now with a team that, has anyone heard of Gary Vaynerchuk? Okay, he's ridiculous.
He's like a huge. He's very famous in the ad world. That's kind of all you need.
You might like have heard of him for like being one of those like 4-hour work weeks and like you don't have to do a lot to get things
Motivational.
done. Like he's a motivational like corporate speaker. He's someone where like in his self-interest, he wants to be seen as like cool, a leader, making change happen, like being on the forefront and edge of something. So we have a team at his media company named VaynerMedia, and they've started having some conversations and like which of these, like what wins us awards? This industry is all about their fancy kind of trophies and awards and titles, and shining a light on what the ones that are kind of the shiny things that everyone gets excited about. What isn't? And doing a little bit deeper digging on how much money does these bad clients actually bring in? And can we kind of make the case here that they will have better retention for their top talent? We can focus more of our attention and time on these clients that win us these awards, and that actually the revenue we're making from these bad clients can easily be replaced. And here's some of the numbers and facts. We just released a report today looking at the growing climate tech, the renewable energy sector, the increasing money put into healthcare industry, and like that are, those are revenues that you can replace some of the fossil fuel revenues with. They had a meeting yesterday. They're being asked to make the case and bring this up to Gary Vee in the next month. So that level of kind of doing this investigation, making this not just an issue for a few people that are the feel good, maybe they work on the sustainability team, but making this an issue of HR, making this an issue of the new business. They've started conversation with some of the clients and hey client, did you know that we also work with BP? And having them ask questions where it really kind of puts the fear of the money into that conversation is a way that we've seen some movement happen. But yeah, I would say, a number of our teams, these pledges aren't just happening randomly. Folks are making these cases internally at their offices. They're getting letters signed by hundreds of employees. They're bringing questions to town halls and kind of putting this opportunity on the desks of their leaders.
Yeah, I think the biggest win when I was at Edelman was seeing them drop ExxonMobil as a client, because that was hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in terms of that contract. And that was a big deal. And the way I talk about that is sort of everything happening at this exact moment where the employees were pressuring the executives, Clean Creatives on the inside, Clean Creatives was pressuring them from the outside. And then you had these influencers too, like Ayana, I think, tweeted about it or posted about it. And I think,
Lovely?
Ayana Elizabeth.
Oh,
yeah,
Johnson,
Johnson.
yes.
sorry, it was on the tip of my tongue.
Johnson,
Uh-huh.
the marine biologist,
Oh,
the famous.
I was thinking of the person who used to be in charge of CCL.
Oh.
I'm probably her book is around here somewhere.
Yeah, she's like a huge famous activist. And then Bill McKibben even tweeted about it at one point too, about Edelman.
Yeah.
So anyway, when all those things happened at Edelman at that moment, they were just under too much pressure and they dropped Exxon.
Well, and what's nice too is these agencies, no one understands the value of public image than PR and advertising agencies.
Yeah.
So when we put them in a corner of ooh, your name is being tarnished, people are talking about you in a bad way, you're getting a bad rap, that affects them on a personal level because it shows that they're not good at their jobs.
Yeah.
If they're having to defend their own reputation, clients are going to start asking questions too.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask about that piece of it, because we've had success with shaming campaigns, with, raising public awareness and actually bird dogging and that kind of thing, going for the reputation of insurance companies, for instance, and stuff like that. So I was assuming that they would even be more sensitive probably to their reputations. So has there been a piece, a public awareness piece of it, and activists, that are going after those targets?
Oh, the video?
Or just the F list.
Oh, I thought you were gonna tell you.
Oh, that one's good too.
Yeah, there is a public awareness piece, Lena. It's this. It's
Sorry,
the F.
hold your.
No. This is. And this is available to everyone in this room too, just if you're curious about
Mad Men, Feeling the Madness. So every year year we do a big kind of report that's an audit on the industry, because as this movement has really started to grow, we're not alone in this. There's organizations called Purpose Disruptors, Creatives for Climate. These agencies are getting a little bit reluctant to tell the world that they're still working for these fossil fuel clients. So we invest a whole year in research to find out who are they working with, how many of these contracts do they have, and we publish that. And this is meant to be a resource not just for the agencies, or this is just a list of who's,
Yeah, go for it.
this is a resource not just for, you know, the staff.
Okay.
So like if you worked, you know, like let's look up Edelman. Oh my gosh, like what?
Yeah.
They're working at all of these companies, and like you might say, oh, I only work at Edelman Brazil, so I'm not part of regular Edelman. Oh yeah, you still have. You still have one of these. So this is a public resource that is, you know, helpful for the employees to know, because often like when you're at one of these agencies, you're like, oh, I'm on this sneakers account, so I don't touch that.
Yeah.
So you might not ever know who the other clients are. So this is meant to be kind of a transparent moment for that. We also get tons of media coverage on this every year. And then this resource is also one that we share. We're working really closely with Patagonia, Seventh Generation, Ben and Jerry's, and having them tell this story around how they're making choices, not just about what products they put out in the world, but also their kind of operations choices. So who do they bank with? What do they use as their payroll distributor? Who you know, covers their insurance? Is their insurance company also insuring pipelines? Who's running their marketing campaigns? Are those marketing campaigns also representing ConocoPhillips? And so by working with those companies to share a little bit more about the kind of that deeper level of financial impact they can have, that works a lot as a shaming too. So when that news came out last year around Havas winning the Shell campaign, a tiny nonprofit, which you might have heard of, the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty folks, they're great, longest name on the planet. They're like a staff of like, I want to say it's like less than a dozen.
What is it? What's the?
It's an NGO that's trying to get different kind of climate leaders to say, like, just commit to moving off of fossil fuels. Small nonprofit, doing great work. But they work with Havas. They were getting free media and advertising from Havas as like a nonprofit of the month situation. When that news dropped, that nonprofit, it's like climate nonprofit, was in the Havas office. They got up and left and walked out, and immediately called the news, said, you know, shared what they did. That got coverage. And so kind of empowering even these small clients to like share about what choices they've made, who they're not working with anymore, are another way that we can kind of like use that kind of positive carrot of who are they willing to work with, but also who are they not willing to work with.
You know what I want to say? Did I just interrupt? I want to tell you, Lena, that if you go to Edelman's Wikipedia page, because of all of this information, like because of all of this work, if you go to Edelman's Wikipedia page, literally the first thing it says is it talks about Edelman's work with fossil fuels, as if it's defining them by that work.
Yeah.
And that was never that. We didn't do that. I didn't do that. Laura didn't do that. That just.
Can't somebody go in and rewrite that?
You can, but like
and then
Wikipedia is
they
like.
would be like, that didn't.
I know, you would think someone would try to cover that up, but I think that's just a testament to like, oh, is the public image of these companies changing now? And the answer is absolutely yes. Like people know this is what they do now.
So, and I think you were giving the example, so if like a good organization had Edelman, and then they realize, they might say, we can't work with you.
Yes.
So we're gonna boycott you unless you get it.
Yes.
Yeah, or we're gonna go to one of the clean agencies, which there are now
1,400.
1,400
Oh,
yeah.
who have committed to not doing any of this.
So there's a
Yeah.
lot, okay.
Yeah.
They're smaller, I'd say,
Yeah,
than the
overall.
giant ones, but they still offer the same services and they can still do the same work.
This is fantastic, I didn't realize that this existed. How many years have we been doing this?
Just 4.
Yeah, because we'd like to, help, get it out there,
Get the
however,
word
just
out.
because it's New York, a lot of people, I know personally a bunch of people that wanna get into advertising, young people.
Yes, yeah.
And I've told them about your organization and stuff, but they just don't have a clue,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
however
and
we
like
can help.
great change we can make from within, but also like whoever your employer is, like even if you're like, oh, we don't really have a marketing budget, do you have a website? Someone
Right.
designed your website.
Right.
Someone probably is your platform for doing email sends. Like those are all kind of those business decisions too that often go through user experience tests, work with graphic designers, web designers. Those are all company choices that you're making that you could filter for not working with, if like they also work with fossil fuel companies.
Do you know who does Coke or Pepsi?
Coke just moved to Publicis. The agency's called Publicis. P-U-B-L-I.
It's French.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
It looks like public biz.
Are they clean?
Actually, XR was just there at their office
Today?
Today.
Wow.
And you might
Because
see it
Coke
on
is back
Instagram.
down on their packaging
Yeah.
pledges. So if the people at Coke or the people at Publicis or both
Mhm.
said, we don't like this, we don't like that you back down on your pledge.
Yes.
Coke. They had pledged reducing packaging and
Right,
doing more
right.
refills. So it could be two things. It could be the people working in the company, Coke, and it could be the advertising company, people working for the
Yes,
advertising,
Yeah.
saying, we don't
Yeah.
like that.
Uh-huh.
We think you should go back to your pledge.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean,
Or
that
we're
would be
not
the nice
gonna,
thing to say.
we're not gonna tell a story saying
Yeah, we're not
about
gonna,
these
like,
good,
Mislead on your behalf.
yes,
or
because
always.
often like you'll see the sticker of like 100% recyclable container.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to make that really, that's not a selling point.
Yeah.
But someone hired an agency to say, how can we appear more
And
green
create
without
that,
changing a thing? Tell everyone your packaging is recyclable. Cool. Like that was a conversation that happened
Right,
between
right.
a client and an
many
agency.
meetings were on that,
Yeah.
She had a question.
I would imagine that basically none of these companies ask the ad agency, what can we do to be more green? They say, make us look more green.
That's 100% correct. That's 100% correct.
Yeah.
And an ad agency or a PR agency doesn't exist to inform operations
Yeah.
at like an energy
Yeah.
company. That's
Yeah.
not their job. Their
Yeah.
job is to create the messaging
Yeah.
and like the media around it. That's their job, and the statements around it. Yeah, did you, someone, or who?
Oh, I was gonna ask if you were planning to expand this like table that you have, or just like the trainings that you're doing from just that, like you had said, you're focused on ad agencies now, but to like law firms and banks, and if any of that was like underway within your organization or with like partner organizations.
There are incredible partner organizations taking on a lot of those other elements, and I can do some more work and send you a list. We are like laser focused on this, and it's been, I think, really powerful to just give kind of the creatives and the ad agency folks like a home where they're like, oh, just like how you're saying, like, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one, and like kind of lean into this group's unique power and voice. But there are other groups that are like, oh, I'm the finance guys, like I understand these things, and we work in partnership at a lot of kind of bigger governmental spaces too. So there's this organization called Purpose Disruptors that looks not just at fossil fuels, but a little bit more of like kind of what kind of work an agency is putting in the world, and they kind of equip agencies on like other levels of choices that they have too. So there's a lot of spaces that we're in, but I can get that list to you of the different organizations to tap into.
That's great. So
Yeah.
if you could send that information to Lena,
Yeah.
and then when we do have the video, we can attach it to that, right? 'Cause I don't know if we're gonna have a Monday email next Monday, because it's the
Yeah, and it also if these names, when we're talking about Edelman and Ogilvy and Havas, like if this is sort of like a new world for some people in the room, like it's all on the Clean Creatives website too. It explains who these companies are, how many offices they have, what they do. You know, it's all there in case anyone's interested in kind of like learning more about that.
Or if you're like, okay, well, I don't wanna work for any of these bad ones, what are the ones that are good? We have that list too. So you can actually click through
Yeah.
and see, oh, like I'm looking for I'm making a new package for, or like a package for the product that I sell. Who can I work with? Like you can search for, a company
Packaging
that does, or like does design, or,
Oh, cool.
we have, packaging, and maybe I'm in Ireland,
Wow.
Great, cool, well, you should work with these 3 guys. They've all signed the pledge saying that they don't currently with, and they will never work with fossil fuel clients. So this is like another way of, rather than the whole list of the hundreds of don't work with these. Because this year, our research already for this year, there's been over 900 contracts that we found between fossil fuel companies and advertising and PR companies.
So you're calling them.
Wow.
Oh yeah, every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know it's bad when you're an employee at the company and you don't even know that
Yeah.
that's your client.
Yeah.
And then you hear from Laura and team, like, do you guys work with this you work with ConocoPhillips, or you work with this, and it's hidden. It's hidden from you. So that says something that they're hiding the work too.
I think that would go on a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just sometimes they used to be really proud, right? Like the company that represents, like if your
Exxon.
lead client is this like really big one, you often it's kind of like right on your website. I'm like, oh, who do we work with? It's really exciting, but it's like not the case anymore. Like when you go to Edelman's website, they'll list, oh yes, brands we trust, great, okay, who do we work with? Oh, what awards did we win? Oh, good. Oh, look at all the great things that we've done. Yeah, we represent eBay and Heineken and Dove.
Well, that's
Yay.
a huge amount of progress right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but like you don't see
Right.
all of the other bad clients that they work with, which we just saw that list. But that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
They used to be quite proud of that.
But you're
work.
right, Lena, it's like
Yeah.
now it's like tuck it away and hide it away. That's
Mhm.
progress in and of itself, because they don't
Absolutely.
want anyone to know about it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
They're ashamed,
What
but not ashamed
about
enough to stop doing
reporters?
it.
I read a lot of conservative media like National Review or Wall Street Journal, and they have a lot of stuff that is very negative. They don't deny climate science very much anymore. There's hardly any of that going on. But there's a lot of, we hate solar farms, we hate windmills, we hate electric cars, all over the place. Yeah.
Trump people.
Well, editorial.
Yeah. So you we have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Thanks.
Can we just?
Yeah, thanks.
There's,
Oh.
would you like to say something? Would you like to say something? You have it.
There's business cards on the back table for my final dinner.
And I'll put stickers